You're listening to the MoneyWeb SAFM Market Update Podcast with host Fifi Peters.
Raising a child can be stressful and expensive, so I'm told by my wonderful friends who have children. But raising a child with special needs is a whole other ball game. The costs of school, care, and medical bills are usually much higher and can leave you out of pocket without the right planning. Here to advise us on financial planning for a special needs child, I'm joined by Gerald Mwandiambira, CEO of Sugar Creek Wealth. Gerald, thanks so much for your time. I suppose it's like raising other children without special needs in the sense that the best time to plan is before they are born.
Oh, yes and no, Fifi. The challenge is that you don't realize your child has special needs often until after they're born, or very close to them being born. But yes, where possible, and you are obviously expecting a special needs child, you can start planning ahead. But in most instances, it happens after the fact. And it is a challenge in that a special needs child is a normal child with extra expenses. And it's that extra layer of expenses which you need to manage and hopefully navigate through.
All right. So if you want to be an early starter here, how can you plan effectively?
I think the most important thing as with any child is to have that safety net. So normally, with any child, you really need to have that cash cushion for any eventuality. So the first thing you definitely need is medical aid. Children, by nature, because they're still building their immune systems, do pick up a lot of bugs. And in any instance, you'd need medical aid. But in the case of a special needs child, you need to actually also go and perhaps look for a medical aid solution, which is going to cover chronic medication or any other special requirements which your child might need. So perhaps I would say, before you even go all this way, get yourself a financial planning professional. Get yourself a financial planning professional who is averse and knows or has clients who have managed raising a special needs child. So you need someone with experience and hopefully someone who has a bit of empathy in terms of understanding your predicament or challenges which you will face in raising your child. Also, in many instances, you don't only have one special needs child. So you need to also have someone who's able to guide you in terms of not necessarily becoming negligent in the financial needs of the other children.
That's a good point you do raise. Gerald, I understand that there is a testamentary trust that needs to be considered in one's will. Can you just flesh out the details of what that trust is and its purpose?
Okay, before we get to the testamentary trust, you need to first set up a life policy on yourself, okay? Now, generally speaking, if you have a special needs child, you need a whole life policy which will cover you until your demise, but also provide that lump sum to care for your special needs child. Now, often, in many instances, you are going to need to set up this trust to manage the money you leave or the inheritance for this child. And by having a testamentary trust, you can also encourage other family members to contribute towards this trust and care of the child. This will just ensure that your child gets adequate care should anything happen to you. Now, the biggest challenge in setting up this trust is knowing how much will be required to care for your child, because a lot of the time, you give up your own personal time with your spouse and your family, and you don't realize that when you're not there, this time will cost money. Again, this points to having that financial professional who can evaluate the actual contribution you're making towards raising your child, because you can say it cost me 100 rand to look after my child, but it doesn't, because it's your child and you're giving up your time. But if you have to hire a nurse and professionals, it won't be 100 rand. So it's those kind of nuances which need to be in place. But the trust is important because it allows other family members to contribute towards it, and also allows the best care for your child should anything happen to you, because a lot of the time, your instinct is to leave your child in the care or in the guardianship of family members. But most of them don't know the challenges you face. And a lot of the time, you find that it's too stressful for them, and sometimes they cannot cope.
How do you choose the right guardian then?
The right guardian normally is, if possible, someone who's younger than yourself, because your child is younger than you. So you're going to need someone who will look after the child until they recover, if they have a special need which can be rehabilitated over time, or until the child is an adult themselves, if they have a special need which they'll have to carry for life. So definitely you need to leave a guardian who's younger than yourself, who's able to carry out this function. And that's possibly why you need a trust, because often when that can't be found, a trust, you can then nominate trustees who can basically carry out this function.
And at what point can your child access this trust, and what are the implications from a tax perspective that they need to be mindful of?
Well, a trust will always attract the maximum tax rate, but the biggest issue here is that depending on the special need of your child, they might never be deemed mentally competent to actually manage this trust or give instructions. So these are the things which need to be taken into account as you set up the trust, in terms of saying, is my special need more a mobility or a disability which just simply needs support, but the child is able to fully function? Or is it one of those special needs where actually you need a trust which will also make decisions and effectively have a proxy or power of attorney over these resources? There's a number of professional trust companies around, so you don't need to worry in terms of who can be my trustees, but these are some of the decisions you need to take as a parent. One of the biggest pieces of advice I also give to parents who are expecting a special needs child is to seek counseling, because by sitting down with a professional counselor or a psychologist, they can be prepared for the challenges which they will face. Because, as much as we all love our children, when there's a special need, and even more if there's other children who might not have a special need, it makes it a lot heavier on you psychologically, and a lot of the time you do need that support of a counselor.
And then, Gerald, just a quick one. What happens if you start late with the financial planning, when you find that the costs and the money, you already are running out of pocket each month because you didn't anticipate the higher costs and you didn't plan? Is there a way or steps that you should be taking to help you recover?
Definitely, Fifi, because the government, in terms of the social welfare, they do have a number of financial support systems for different kinds of special needs. So you definitely need to inquire at the state solutions. And also, if you know that your child is carrying a particular special need, there's normally a lot of non-profit organizations which operate around different special needs. By getting into those networks, firstly, you can link up with other parents who are facing the same challenges as yourself, and also you can then also tap into sometimes resources and grants which will allow you to lighten that burden of raising your child.
All right. So in the main, have medical cover, have a life cover, set up a testamentary trust, and have the right guardian to help you manage that trust, or to manage it should you pass, is essentially the basics here.
No, definitely. Those are the basics. And most importantly, an overarching, or get a good, solid financial planning professional who can give you sound advice and basically remind you that by being a parent to a special needs child, you're a super parent, because you're raising a super child with super needs. And a lot of the time, sometimes you do need someone who will give you that kind of encouragement to keep soldiering on, because the world as it is does not often take into account the needs of special needs children or even adults.
All right, Gerald, thanks so much for your time. We'll leave it there. Gerald Mwandambira, CEO of Sugar Creek Wealth.
You've been listening to another MoneyWeb SAFM Market Update podcast, uploaded weekdays at 7 p.m. For more MoneyWeb podcasts, go to moneyweb.co.za or the app, and follow MoneyWeb News for daily updates.